Well, today the Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson is talking to Parliament and telling them all about her big reforms to special education needs funding in schools. 1.7 million pupils have apparently got special education needs in schools in England, and over 480,000 of those have got EHCPs, which basically give you a legal guarantee that you will actually get help. But the government says they're going to spend an extra 3.4 billion quid. But it's over 3 years, and it's for 1.7 million kids on their special needs help. But we won't guarantee that not every child will keep their extra funding and their extra help. Well, let's talk about this with Stephen James. He's an award-winning teacher. Very good morning to you.
Hello, good morning, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thanks for joining me. I think most of us will know someone who's got a child who's having some help in school for special education needs. I mean, wasn't the case when I was younger, that's for sure. But we also know there's a massive variety. There are kids who need every bit of help. They need literally to be in a class of, 3 or 4 kids. And then there are some kids who, let's be honest, a bit of bedtime, a few healthy meals and a bit of discipline, they'd be absolutely fine. But in terms of what we know so far about this reform, is it going to make a blind bit of difference? Is it going to help, or is it going to hurt kids?
Look, I think any money spent wisely by government will ultimately help. But what I will say with this is that demand has risen very sharply in the last couple of years. Why is that? Is that because people are more aware? Is that because of COVID? Is that because of a multitude of issues? Local authorities, as we know, are very cash strapped, and schools in some places do lack very specialist knowledge. Now, and I think when I was teaching, you would look at your class coming up to you and you go, right, okay, there's the needs in that class. I need to go and upskill myself on whatever maybe disabilities or special needs that those children have, and then implement that in your teaching for the following year. Yeah. But what we're looking at now is hubs of excellence. Certainly when I'm looking at Kent, hubs of excellence where there is specialist knowledge delivering teaching to those children.
The trouble with that, of course, is specialist schools offer kids are from many miles. You can't just sort of get your kid on the bus or pop them in the car or walk to your local specialist school. It can be many miles away, and that's when you end up with these comedy taxi bills for kids for hundreds and hundreds of pounds a day.
But what we're also looking at there is not just the children moving there, it's also the teachers as well, and the CPD that can be delivered by them to us. So I remember going to a school called the Beacon here and learning from specialist teachers in dyslexia, and they would change my way of thinking about it, and then how I can deliver my quality first teaching to the whole class, not just to those children with dyslexia or
Here's the thing,
though.
Somebody went to a comp and it was taught in top group GCSEs with, O-levels as it was then, with people who could barely read. Mixed ability classes are quite difficult. And I'm not saying that the kid who's got dyslexia is thick and can't go. I'm not saying that at all, quite the opposite. The trouble is, you can't teach a class of 30 with a massive range of ability and needs. And a lot of parents of kids who don't have these special education needs worry that actually an awful lot of resources in mainstream schools are focused on these kids because there's this legal right. And, OK, some kids who are quite bright might get looked after, and actually the rest in the middle get completely forgotten about.
Yeah, and you're right to point that out. But when funding is secured through an HCP, that is ring fenced for that child and that is used by that child. However, I have seen examples in schools where you might have a group of children being led by a specialist teacher or a teaching assistant to be able to better deliver that teaching for that child, and it might be social skills that are needed with it as well. Yeah. But what we really need here is not a kind of race to the bottom in terms of how we're dealing with children with additional needs. It's about how we can make sure that all children in your school, in your class, can be propelled forward, and that's the real focus for me.
But again, we know that schools that are struggling to find a stand-in maths teacher are pretty much going to be struggling to find some of these educational specialists as well. In terms of the extra funding, I mean, it looks like a drop in the ocean. I've worked it out as £675 a year per pupil. I'm not sure that covers much of the cost of those specialist teachers. A lot of parents say we're in this situation where we've got this massive explosion of kids who are claiming this. And again, is it lockdown? Is it people being more aware? There isn't an explosion in kids who are severely, say, autistic or needing extra care. It's only in the milder cases. There's a lot of concern that actually you've got the middle-class parents who are gaming the system, getting extra teaching for their kid and get extra time in exams. You've got working-class parents who are struggling, and frankly, a lot of parents who just frankly aren't doing the job of parenting very well, and they're also able to claim a shed load of extra benefits if they've got a child who supposedly has this disability. And you've got a lot of financial and educational incentives for parents to get their kids statemented, and at the same time you've got a bunch of parents who've got kids who desperately need the help, who say they're waiting years for assessment and their kids are getting worse and they're not getting the help. How do we have a system, which surely in a sensible, civilised country should manage, where we don't let people game the system, we don't let, you know, every other kid have considered to be special, but we do make sure that the kids who need it, and they get it straight away?
I think what you're pointing out there is the inequality amongst parents, and that is huge as well. And I've encountered parents before who've wanted to find a diagnosis for their child, and they come in and say, right, can I have some evidence for this? Can I have some? Can I get your opinion on that? And I'm not a child psychologist, so I can't make those judgments. But what they're doing is they're then going off and paying to a private practice to get that.
And by the way, if you pay privately, you get the diagnosis you want.
Absolutely, and then they come into me and say, right, my child's got this additional need. Yeah. What are you going to do for them? Expecting like their child will get an advantage over others.
Yeah, it's called cheating. We used to just call it cheating. Now we call it this, but you know.
Yeah, you could call it that, I suppose. But I think, you know, what again, we need to really focus in on what core education looks like. And I also think, you know, our curriculum is far too wide. We need a knowledge-rich curriculum. If children are leaving school not being able to read, write, and count, that's a real problem for me. So regardless of where the spending is being spent,
I mean, to leave a child like that, you know.
Well, and you know, your own children as a parent, your children leaving you to take on the wide world without being able to read and write is, you know, it's a reflection on you. So
although I've got some questions for those parents as well.
I'm sure you do.
Put down your phones, pick up a book, get them from the library. They're free. You know, sorry, but let's. And this is it.
We need to put education in the hands of the professionals, and you know, let teachers make decisions on you know, at the chalk face and go, right, this is my class. These are the specialists that I need to do my job effectively, to make sure that all the children in my class are able to progress, not just those with special needs or those that are high attaining.
Okay, great to talk to you, Stephen James, award-winning teacher. Thank you very much indeed. Benedict Spence, I mean, were you special needs or high attaining? Or were you just one of the average kids at your school? No, but I think genuinely. I think
what do you think?
People's perspective. High attaining. I think people's perspective on these things are always down to what kind of school. Did you go to a comp? Did you go to school where you basically had everything and you would talk? Yeah, you know.
What do you think?
Yeah, but I think it massively affects your view on these things.
It's tricky because I really do believe fundamentally in the rights of parents to have as much say as possible over their children's education. But in this country, there has been a real breakdown, disconnect, whatever you might call it, where there are far too many parents who, for whatever reason, do not take that much of a role in their children's education. Therefore, the state needs to step in. Problem is, many parts of the state sector, in fact, also do not meet requirements. I just
don't believe for a moment there are 1.7 million pupils with special educational needs in this country. There simply are. And every child that doesn't really have it, if you're getting the benefits or you're getting exam advantage, is taking away from another kid.